Okay, guys. So today we will be covering API gateway management. So what is API gateway management? API gateway management is a layer. You can think of some computers layers which are acting as broker between front end and the back end. So let's start. Let me share my screen here. Before we start, put it in the chat. You guys know about gateway? Well, like heard what is the concept of gateway? Why we need this gateway? Put in the chat. Okay. That we in microservices word we need the gateway. So let me go to first. I have the bookmark saved. So here it talks about will API management components. So the first thing is API gateway. API gateway is the endpoint that accepts API calls and routes them to the appropriate backend. I will show you guys diagram. It that will make more sense later. So the benefit of having a gateway is that you can validate API keys and other credentials presented. So before I go further, you guys worked on APIs? RESTful APIs, put in the chat, yes, no. I'm sure that you must have done some multi-layered architecture where you had the business layer. Okay, so you guys know APIs. Awesome. So as we know, all the APIs, they have some common concerns. They need to be authenticated. If these APIs are hosted as RESTful APIs, they need all of them need to be authenticated. You on Azure, you have to remember you are exposing these APIs to the world. They can be abused. Right now in my organization, we are facing that issue that if we expose authentication and authorization APIs, so some person can really hit very hard. He may be accessing it million times. That can occur in denial of service. So here it comes into picture, enforces usage quota and rate limits. We will see little bit later in this meeting how we can how we can limit the misuse. We can put some quota. Another beautiful thing about using API gateways, when we are sending all the requests, suppose you want to send some additional information. Okay, this request came from the mobile. What is the user information? You want to send that. This is opportunity for you to do that. Also, you can do the caching at the gateway. A lot of time when we working on the APIs, especially in microservices APIs, you have multiple APIs doing a lot. So performance can be really problem. But if you are returning some same information, the number of states, you can cache those kind of information, so the performance is better. Also, API gateway, you can enter the logs, metrics, traces for monitoring and reporting and troubleshooting. So the today we'll be focusing on the API gateway. There is a management plane where is it is for provisioning and configuring API management services, define or import API schema. So we will also look into this one, the management plane. And then there's a development portal where you can read API documentation, call API by interactive mode. So the products, so product is a way of managing your APIs. So here is start talking. The products are how APIs are surfaced to developers. I would not go further here. Let's move to groups. And API management has following groups: administrator, developers, guests. So which makes sense, like administer to admin the APIs, developers who are using these APIs for the development purpose. And policies, I will read the policies because policies in API gateway are very, very important. All the magic which we are limiting quota, we are modifying the heads, all the magic is happening through policies. So let me read the policies. Later it will make more sense to you guys when I'll show some demo. So policies are a collection of statements that are executed sequentially on the request of a or response of an API. Popular popular statements. So basically, we can implement policies on request on the response. Popular statements include format conversion from XML to JSON, and call rate limiting to restrict the number of incoming calls from a developer, and many other policies are available. Policy expression can be used as attribute values or text values in any of the API management policies unless the policy specifies otherwise. Some policies such as control flow and set variables are based on policy expressions. Policies can be applied at different scopes depending upon your needs: global, a product, a specific API, or an API operation. So we'll go a little bit more in details. This will make more sense. This, as I said, policies are very, very important. All the magic is happening when you are using policies. So here it talks about like why we need API gateway between the front and back end. So the first thing is like you may have a lot of APIs. They may have different endpoints. So what if you could give a centralized access to all your APIs? The benefit of doing is that later you can change your API addresses. Uh, all your client will be calling the gateway, and you can do lot of cleanup. You can change the uh, URL. The maintenance becomes very, very easy. It gives you freedom. You can move your APIs from low performing server to more perform have big performer servers. All you have to do is change the API gateway to direct to be pointed to the new servers. So it talks here like there are a lot of cost cutting tasks for the API. As we discussed, API, you have to do authentication, SSL termination, you client certification SSL certificates you need to verify, rate limiting. Somebody is not abusing your APIs. So that's what it's telling. If you don't deploy a gateway, client must send request directly to backend service. And if it can result in complex client code, because we know in microservices you could be using a lot of other if services, and you don't want to so calculate somebody's credit score. It may be calling his customer service, it may be calling a another service which get his credit card account, calculate his amount. So all this information can be hidden. It creates coupling. If that's what talking about, client and backend coupling is a bad thing, because then you cannot refactor the code, you cannot move your APIs to some other server. Here it calls for a single operation may require multiple calls. uh, the cross cutting concerns like authentication, SSL, and client rate limiting. So another thing is like your APIs are open to attack. So if you put in the gateway, you can focus all your security needs on the gateway. Make sure that security is really, really tight. So that way developers don't have to worry about their API security. They can just focus on their programming. So it talks about there are two type of uh, API management. One is managed, which we will be talking Azure, and there's a self-hosted. If you're running your own hybrid scenario. So here we are going to discuss more policies, and So it talks about policies allow publisher to change the behavior of API through the configurations. Policies are collection of statements that are executed sequentially on the request or response of API. Policies are applied inside the gateway that sits between API consumer and the managed API. The gateway receives all the requests and forward them unaltered to the underlying APIs. However, a policy can change both, can apply changes to the both inbound request and outbound response. Policy expression can be used as attribute value, text values, and I think it's repeating. So understanding the policy configuration. The policy definition is a simple XML document, describes the sequence or of inbound and outbound statements. So you can see how the policy document looks like. It's just XML inbound. So all the calls are coming towards API. They are called inbound. So if you want, you are getting some requests towards your APIs and you want to do some authentication, do some check, some transformation, uh, that payload may be coming in XML. Your API works on JSON. So all those things you can do on the inbound. And backend is where the API is the processing, real processing is happening. And outbound is once your APIs did their work, they are sending the response back. That is outbound. On error, if something goes wrong, what you need to do. Policy expression, it's here it talks like you can have C# kind of statements. We can see here, this is a inbound policy. And I think base will come later. I'll keep it later. It's a very important tag, very important tag. So here you can see it's a C# code, and it's adding these values to the header, giving him the user ID and the region. The Azure knows because of authentication what is the user ID, what's the region. So as I discussing base, I will come to different later. So here we will be talking about base. So some policies you want to apply at the global level, and some policies you want to apply at some specific API level. So let's see example here. Here we are, so here this policy inbound, the cross domain policy will be applied first, and then it's calling the global. Here you are calling the global policies which you have set up at the global level, and then you call the this policy which has been set at the API level. Here it talks like when uh, when you are sending the response, and you can filter it. You can remove some of the content if there are some values like minutely, hourly, daily, flags. These are some internal values you don't want to send. You can here is your place. While you are sending out, you can remove that. So it talks about the advanced policies, and as we'll make a lot of this will make sense once I will create but once I will show you example, create an exercise. So here we'll be talking about control flow, forward request, limit concurrency, log to event, how mock response, retry. So control flow is it's giving if else statement. When this condition is true, do this. When this is true, do this. Forward request. So this is like forward request is like timeout happened. It will forward request to the APIs. If this was not this the command, this timeout will happen and you will get the error. It will not forward the request to the backend. Concurrency. You can limit the number of calls. If you can set it up here the number, and if like if you set maybe 20 people can call your API at the same time. If more than 20 people will call, it will get you 4 to 9, too many requests. So you can limit how many people can access, so that it doesn't, if you don't want a scenario where million people are hitting your API and it results in denial of access. API gateway is another way for centralized logging. You can log to the event log. Okay, for this is the message came. Sometimes you want to send a mock response. You may be testing API. That API implementation is not there, so you can return mock response for your testing. Retry is how many times you will retry, and then your child uh, policy will be executed. So return response, it aborts the pipeline execution. It returns either a default or customer response to the caller. So if you want to do that, how use secure APIs by using subscriptions. So you can get a subscription key. We'll do a exercise later. So in the API, you have a subscription. You can get the primary. You can create a subscription key and give the primary key to the call API. So we don't want anybody to call our API. So subscription key is give us that mechanism. If I am building something, so Santosh has to provide me this subscription key. Then only I will let him access. I think olden days we used to hard code something into the header, which they knew and we knew. So this is a more sophisticated way of doing that. Azure does this for us. So call an API with subscription key. So here is the example. So let me I can let's do first our demo. Let me log into Azure portal. 1 minute, I'm checking something. Okay, let me log into my Azure portal. So I was doing some exercises. Okay, let me bring this window on. Let me bring my. Okay, so let's see our. Let me quickly show you guys how to create your API management console. So I already have created a resource group, and you go to home, create a resource, and let's search for API management. Here's our API management, what you call launching pad. So once I create, so you have to subscribe your resource group. We will use Central USA and resource. Let me give it demo, our date. Demo organization. And I'm going to give some dummy admin name, and that's all. That's all needed to create our API management gateway. So as it is it creating. So this is how you create your API management gateway. So it's going to go take some time. Let me go to some other API management, which I created already because it's going to take some time to get initiated. So for our example, let me go to this one and the APIs. So this API, this is the portal. I already using this demo conference APIs. Let me see whether I can delete it so that I can show you. So this is our management. So now I have to get our APIs, add our developer APIs. So I click, I either there are multiple options here. I can use open. Either I can use here gives me a way of importing APIs into my portal. Either I can use open API. Sorry, from the start it's basic HTTP, WebSocket, GraphSQL, gRPC, or I can use open API, uh, uh, WADL, WSDL, OData to import APIs. Also, it gives me if I can use app service or container app to import it. Let me it for this I would need some additional information. Let me cancel this one. I have a app service. Browse. This already I have created already this app service. So I'm importing all the APIs from this app to this gateway. So here I got those APIs here. So right now we are looking into subscription. Santosh want to Santosh want to access these APIs, and how will add subscription, and Santosh ki. So we have created a subscription key for Santosh. So let me share these values. So this is how it showed. We will be testing by curl statements. So we are going to the command PowerShell to test it. Think I picked up the wrong one. We'll come later. Let's go to another exercise and then I'll show you subscription. Uh, this one. I think there's an exercise. I jumped ahead but we saw the API gateway, how to import your how to import your APIs into our gateway. Here it talks about certificates. I will not go into certificates. All of us knows HTTPS. If you need certificates from central authorization, and it's very important to make sure your communication is secure between client and server. So here it talks about the policies. You can apply the policies to verify the certificate. It talks about you can check the thumbprint of a client certificate. This is a policy to do that. You can check the thumbnail against certificates uploaded to the API management. Here you already uploaded the certificates to the Azure website and you can verify. You can check the issuer and subject of a client certificate. So next one is create a backend API. So here is the create a API management instance, which I showed you how to create your API management instance. We went to the portal and let's go back to here. So we will be using this demo conference API. This is something already built for the demo purpose. So APIs are built. So we'll create a gateway. From the gateway, we will import APIs from this API application. So let me go back here. In this window, go to the APIs and remove this one. So let's see what we need to do. So we need to go to API and select Open API. So we have to select Open API for this our exercise. So we have to give this information. As I said, there's already application, REST API application. So we can use for our demo this one. Just copy. So these names are populated. Let me see here. Here we need to give conference, create. So here all it has imported. So let me show you guys how you can test here also. So let me select this one, test it. So get speakers. You guys must have used post postman post for testing. So here we can see we got our data from the APIs. So all the APIs for this application is being listed here. We can test it. And here we were talking about a lot of policies. So this is our front end. Inbound, inbound. This is the point where you create your policies for incoming request. And this is the backend, and this is the outbound processing. So inbound, you set up policies for requests. They are coming inside here. Backend is when your APIs are processing, and outbound processing is when your response is being sent. At that time, you can set up the policies. So here, if you see policies, you can see you can filter IP addresses, limit call rate, set query parameters, mock responses. When you go to limit call rate, you can it's giving you a user interface based interface. You can specify how many number of calls he can call, what's the renewal rate, what is the counter key incremental condition. This is the how you implement a quota on the number of calls. So this is where you set up all the policies for you for your APIs. And the certification, let's test the certification here, subscription key. So here we created test the API. We tested the API and this one is done. So let me go back to my bookmarks. So we covered today API management, what our gateways are, policies, and how you can subscription, you can get the API. You can set up policies for the certificates, and we created one backend API. So let's see how much we can cover from here. Create an API gateway. So what is API management? API management, Azure API management. It talks, you get the documentation, you can set up policies. It's pretty much repeating. I'll not go more into this as we already covered. So I think next exercise, he's creating an API gateway. So here is interesting. He's creating a shoe company web API. So he's making our job easier. So he has given us some commands to which creates an Azure App Service plan from the free tier, creates a web API with an Azure App Services configured for Git deployment from a local repo, sets account level deployment credentials for our app, configure Git locally, deploy our web API to our app service instance. So I have already done this far so that we don't waste our time set doing this process. So it's creating a application, a Azure App Service, so that we can test our APIs, or we can test our Azure API. So these, let me show you guys what I have already done that. So this is another one. This is another one I have created, and you can the name I gave us this one, company. So it has all the commands here, and let me show you guys the swagger I have for this. It's under my bookmarks. So here is the swagger. I'm sure you guys must have seen swagger, and it's showing all the APIs for this application. And let me go back there. So you can see I already deployed, and we can see all the APIs from this application. So deploy an API gateway, which I have done it. For done, we have shown you how to create a API gateway. Import and publish APIs. That's what it's talking about here. You in API. Let me remove this one. It's talking like when we are importing, we created the gateway, and we are importing APIs from other applications which may be deployed in different server, or they could be a app service, or it could be container app. For us, it has already created a app service. So let's create add service. App service, since they are deployed on Azure only in same resource group, we can just say browse. This application, it's showing the application. Select. Uh, Let me give something here. Great. So this is how you import your APIs, and it's showing all the APIs here. And you can select the API and set up different policies: inbound, outbound, backend. The here is talking about API, how to import APIs. One Yep, is talking about policies, how you can set up policies at the inbound, backend, outbound. You can create your products you can create. So here's the exercise I already showed you. You add API, click open API, and you can give the URL here, and you can see the all the values. You can test it. Call an API with a subscription key. So that's what I showed you, how we can create the subscription key. And here is the command to do it. Let me see. So I'm copying and pasting the command. Resource not found. This, I think, API could be different here. I think this API is different. Oh, exercise is not, this is not the exercise. Exercise is the next page. Didn't like the button. Oops. Let me try in the URL. Resource not found. I would have expect I would have expected something like this. Access denied. So I'll check this one next time. So we are already 10 minutes before. I will start my demos here. So guys, any questions from you?
I have one question.
1 minute. Let
Okay.
me pull the screen. Go ahead.
Okay. So in API, we implement JWT, like JSON Web Token, for security reason.
Mm-hmm.
So here Azure also provides security. So
Mm-hmm.
can we implement JWT in our API and we can present here? We can integrate here with Azure.
Yes, yes. Means you can. I think your question is whether you can set up policies for the JWT or not. Yes, you can do that, right?
Uh, Okay.
I mean, yes, your API is expecting JWT tokens. That should continue working here. API
Okay.
gateway is just a broker here. It means if you need to do something, verify something in your tokens, if you want to do authentication at the API gateway, not at the API level, you can do that. So that way, you do code without worrying about JWT authentication, all those things.
Okay, sir.
You mean because like under policy we can set up those and we will get the token, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay, so every time we'll hit the API and we'll get the token and then we can use it. You mean to say?
exactly. Okay. Like I was very impressed by the API gateway as I was going through. or the lot of stuff I learned something like transformation, XML to JSON transformation. It can add parameters because it has a lot of information Azure based because it's your it knows who you are. It has a lot more information. It can add those information. Uh, 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 Cache. It can do caching. Logs. Log. It can do logging.
So, because
Hmm.
let's suppose we have an API developed, custom API we have developed, and
Okay.
we have deployed it on Azure.
Okay.
Now we need to expose it to different clients. So all we have to create the subscription for different clients. Those we are going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So in the policy, are we setting the throttling, like how many times they can hit this API? Uh, what will be the duration between one hit and another hit? Like that, we all can be managed through the subscription or the policies.
Policies. You, Rakesh, you will, sorry, Santosh, you will set up
Hmm.
policies for inbound calls, setting up the rate limit, and that's how you
Okay.
will make sure you can set up concurrent calls also, how many concurrent calls can go, so that
Hmm.
way your APIs are not choked.
Okay.
And
So,
all APIs need those kind of thing. At the gateway, you can set up all those policies, so that way,
hmm.
means you don't have to worry in as a developer. You don't have to worry on your end.
Okay.
The admin at the
So,
gateway will take care for you.
okay. So let's suppose I am talking about the hits we are getting. I mean calls we are getting. Let's suppose we got a maximum calls. So the escalating like scaling Azure will take care, or we have to deploy that different places, or what is called load balancing will happen automatically, or we need to think about that also, that if the load increases, how the API will behave, and whether it is going to be installed in some other application server. Like that, we have to take care, or Azure is going to take care about that.
Depends how Santosh you deploy. If you deploy at Azure Azure functions,
Hmm.
that is going to take care itself of scaling because
Okay.
in Azure functions you don't care what is the operating system, what is the server. You just write
Hmm.
your code and deploy. Whereas if you are setting up the microservices, then you
Hmm.
have to set up at the design time how many nodes.
Okay.
Mm, you
Correct.
can hear.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm, Manvendra, somebody joined us now.
Sorry, because I am late.
You're not late. You're too early. My teacher, my professor used to joke, you are early for next meeting. we we almost ending, but we good. We have recorded. How do you say your name? Manvendra.
Manvendra Singh.
Once again?
It's a Manvendra Singh.
Manvendra.
So good morning, good evening.
Good morning. Can you turn on your? It's okay if we are doing a live video. If you are not comfortable, that's okay. If you don't want to turn on your camera,
Actually, yesterday was my marriage anniversary. That's why I.
okay. we
Yeah,
accept
congrats,
your.
Manvendra.
We accept your reason.
Oh, thank you.
So, Santosh, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Yes, we can hear.
So, Santosh,
Hmm.
I answered
And
your question.
Yes, yes. It was
Okay.
sufficient.
Any other question, guys?
From my side.
Awesome. So, what do you think about gateway? Santosh, Rakesh, and Aditya.
We got fairly idea about gateway.
So you will, if you are building APIs for Azure, you will guys gonna use Gateway? Yes, no.
Yes, we can. We will use the gateway when we think like we need to expose it for multiple clients, and if we have some policies, kind of like throttling, I can say, that is restricting or having some certificate, what it called. Security, like token, as you told, like we can pass the header token from there. All of the headers can be managed through the policy. So whatever the API we develop, it will be a bare minimum, only the functionality there, whatever the development we did. Other things can be managed through the API gateway. So that part will handled by the API. But if let's suppose we are generating an API currently, whatever the security management, everything we need to write there, so that part we can exclude it from the API development, and it will go to the API management. So API management, I can say, it is basically a middle application which will be with between the client and the API. It will manage all the inbound and outbound responses. So that part will be taken care by the API gateway.
Exactly. Awesome. Okay, guys. So we are almost 9. So enjoy. So see you next time.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
Because
Thank
my
you.
Good.
question, when are we
Thank you so much.
planning for the next session?
We meet once in 2 weeks, Manvinda.
Mhm.
So
So
today, just
19th.
add 2 more weeks. Next Sunday we'll not meet. Next to next.
So another question.
Mm-hmm.
So are have we finalized the topic for next meeting?
Today, generally, how I do it, like I ask for volunteers. So
Mhm.
Santosh, Rakesh, you guys have started volunteering. so this is opportunity also for you to present anything. If you are in, this is a opportunity if you want to present something for 5-10 minutes. So tomorrow I'm going to publish in WhatsApp next
Mhm.
date, and I'm going to ask people whether they are interested in presenting something, and based on that, then I prepare the agenda and send to people. So generally, people 1 week before they know the agenda, who are the speakers.
So as of now, I don't have anything. But generally, we are covering topics related to AZ 204, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think Azure function is a very important topic. So
The,
have we
like,
covered the
you
topic?
last time one guy Mohan, he gave 30 minutes
Mhm.
presentation to you, but sure
Mhm.
we'll cover it again.
Okay. And
But if you want to present something,
mhm.
let me know. You're welcome.
Okay. I will check and will update you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Good morning. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your Monday. See you guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you,
you.
sir.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.